Welcome to Term 1 Week 10 review lesson for factors affecting earthquake damage. Now we learned that there are 5 key factors that will affect the impact of an earthquake. The 5 factors are namely population density, level of preparedness, distance from epicenter, time of occurrence, as well as soil type. Population density refers to the amount of people living in a square area. When you have a higher population density living in the particular area, when an earthquake strikes, there is a higher chance of more people getting hurt. There is also a tendency for areas with high population density to be built with high-rise buildings. And when you have high-rise buildings, the tendency for larger impact and destruction is greater. As seen in this particular picture, there is a high population density in this area. It is a major city. Henceforth, if an earthquake was to strike this area, the potential for damage will be very, very large. Examples of this include all the major cities of the world: Singapore, Japan, Tokyo in Japan, even Yokohama in Japan, or even cities like Beijing, London, or the American cities will all qualify as examples. This picture shows a typical farmland with low population density. So if an earthquake were to hit this area, the potential for loss of human life would be significantly lower than if it were to hit a city area. Examples of the farmland areas include farms in Australia, Malaysia, or even Indonesia. The next factor that we will be looking at is level of preparedness of the population in the area. There are 3 main areas we will be looking at when we talk about level of preparedness. The first and foremost is the availability of public training, as well as the social awareness of the population. Because if you have been trained properly and there's high social awareness of earthquakes happening in the area, there's a lower chance or less likelihood of the population panicking when it strikes. And this would reduce greatly the amount of damage or loss of human lives. The second mode of level of preparedness we will be looking at is when you have repeated practice of emergency exercises. This will allow the local population to be familiar with action necessary when an earthquake strikes, and henceforth lowering the chance of loss of human life and destruction of unnecessary destruction of property. Finally, the availability and preparedness of emergency preparedness kits also help raise the possibility of survival of people who have been affected by an earthquake. So in total, these 3 factors will determine the level of preparedness of an area. The more prepared you are, the less likely you will be suffering when an earthquake strikes. Examples of areas that have high level of preparedness includes countries like Japan and even the Philippines. The third factor we'll be looking at is distance from epicenter. Now, seismic energy weakens as you move further and further away from the epicenter of the earthquake. This is because the soil that is between the epicenter and the location where the city is actually helps absorb some of these energy from the waves. Now, so locations further away from the epicenter tend to suffer less from an earthquake. A few reminders: epicenter is the location on the surface directly above the focus of the earthquake. So as you can see from this particular diagram here, the further you are, the lesser the energy waves that will affect you. So where the rabbit is nearer to the epicenter as compared to where the turtle is. So the rabbit will feel larger impact, while where the turtle is, it will feel lesser impact. Next factor we're looking at is time of occurrence. Time of occurrence refers to what time of the day the earthquake actually strikes. Time of occurrence actually affects the reaction time of the people who are affected by the earthquake. So if earthquake happens in the day, the people who are affected are awake and are able to take contingency action. However, if the earthquake occurs in the middle of the night, people tend to be asleep, and as a result, there is a longer reaction time required. Another issue with earthquakes happening at night is you might lose your electrical infrastructure due to the tremors and due to collapse of certain buildings or rupturing of certain pipes. As a result, there will be no lights, and it heightens the risk of falling and injuring themselves in the midst of trying to escape from the location of the earthquake. So time of occurrence affects the ability of the population to react accurately and safely. The last factor we are looking at is soil type. Soil type refers to the type of soil that is found at the location affected by the earthquake. Now, if the area has loose and unconsolidated soil, during an earthquake, the shaking will be magnified by the loose soil. So, as a result, the impact on the people living in the area will be rather large. Buildings that are built on loose soil will often collapse, fracture, or be totally destroyed. Another problem with loose soil type is the concept of liquefaction. This is where the loose soil actually shakes to a point where it moves like water. It is not a process where there's actual water mixing in, but the loose soil itself behaves like water. When this happens, there's a large danger of landslides occurring, and on top of the earthquake damage, you might have landslides burying the rest of the infrastructure or even roads and transport networks totally. Now, so we have covered all 5 factors that will affect the impact of an earthquake. These 5 factors will probably be tested in the open-ended question type because you are allowed to compare and contrast more than one factor pertaining to a given concept. Therefore, it is important that you now move on and do a quick review of how to answer the open-ended question type. So hopefully this short video gives you some form of a recap and you are better able to understand what we've gone through in class. If you like this video, please support by giving it a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you.